What is a bad car? A bad car is a car which isn't doing its purpose. A car is supposed to give you the ability to go places. Is it a car which you see a lot? A car which is ugly? Or a car which is impractical? Well, I feel like that you can answer this question in 3 parts. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, one thing I realized is you can't answer this question at once. I realized that you have to answer this question in 3 main parts. The 3 main parts are practicality. If your car can't hold your groceries, you won't be able to use it. The second part is quality-wise. If your car falls apart after 3 miles, you can't drive it. And third of all, statistically. This may be the most important of all, as if your car is slow, bad, and small pretty much, you can't use it. So here are the 3 main answers. This automobile would go into the part of impracticality. And this was very hard to choose because I could choose a Ferrari F40, but number 1 would have to be the Vectra W8. The Vectra W8 was manufactured by Vector, which was owned by General Motors. But this car, only 17 were made, so if a part were to break, which there were a lot of futuristic parts on this car, you would have to call the chief designer to make it. So it was very hard to keep this car in good shape, and you cannot use it on a daily basis at all. The second car would go into the slot of quality. If you have a bad quality car, the car will fall apart after 3 miles of usage, which means you won't have a car anymore. So quality is very important, and this slot shares 2 kind of, but one is a bit worse quality than the other. So I will mention the other car. This is the Trabant, but the main car is the Yugo. The Yugo was okay, but it just had so many unfinished parts that just made it such a bad car. And what made it so famous? Because it was bad. Most people would think a bad car is the Yugo, but actually, it was not that slow actually, and it kind of worked. It would bring you places, but the Yugo did not do it in style. There was so much plastic, there were wires which were exposed, and it was a terrible driving experience, as the best quality Yugos would still have at least 10 things broken, even the highest quality ones, which had like 3 or 4 more switches. I watched a video back about the Yugo, and many people actually said they'd rather have a bus ticket than drive this piece of shit. We finally made it to the most important part of this video, the number 1 worst car ever made, because instead of using other things like practicality, we are using the real facts. And this car is billions of miles ahead of the Vector, thousands of miles ahead of the Yugo, and amount of miles, that number doesn't exist, ahead of the Toyota Corolla. This car is the PLP50. And I have to go onto a tangent here just for this car and about this brand to tell you why the hell a company would make a 3-wheeled, 1-person, 100-mile-per-gallon microcar in the mid-1960s. The car was so limited, it didn't even have reverse. of Man in the 1960s was a very nice place because there were motorcycle races, and those motorcycles were racing on very narrow and curvy roads, which caused many of deaths. So the small company named Peel decided to make a microcar which could handle the roads, but unfortunately that car wasn't in demand. They tried again with the Trident, but nothing worked. Their most successful car was the Viking, an unknown car, but unfortunately couldn't keep Peel afloat and they went out of business. But then one day, some weird person found a Peel in their garage, and then they started to sell it again with reverse added. It kind of became a meme because how small it was, and it started to become popular because it was small. And then Forza Horizon 4 released the Peel, and now it's one of the most famous cars of all time. Let me tell you something. Did you know that the Peel P50 is the most expensive car in the world? I don't think you knew that because you can buy a perfectly new one for $50,000. But then you can buy a Mitsubishi Mirage for $10,000 and you get more car per pound. That's interesting, right? Let me tell you about it. So, you can get a Lamborghini Centenario for only $3 million. That's expensive, but that's like a 2,000 pound car. This car is only 300 pounds and it's already $15,000, which means if you got a block of Peel P50 and made it the size of a Lamborghini, it would be way more expensive than the Lamborghini itself. That's a fact. Well, we finally did it. We now know what the worst car ever made is. And we also know that the Vectra WA is impractical and the Yugo is made out of literal pieces of shit. We searched through many cars and I think this is fun, so thank you for tuning in of the first episode of The Worst Ever Made. Yeah, this is my first ever documentary, and see ya.